I would call to order at 5:00, whatever it is. 4:59. Okay, so that clock's fast. 5 o'clock. Calls to order at 5 o'clock. I wanted to, here's Robin. To add an item to the agenda, which just came to me today from Dan MacArthur, who is a member of the Marlboro School Board and also one of the two representatives from the Wyndham region of the Vermont School Board Association, and he had a couple of resolutions that he wanted us to consider. So I had some time this afternoon, so I went looking at the open meeting law, looking at Robert's rules, and we can, any addition or deletion to or from an agenda is required to be made as the first act of business at a meeting. So I'm going to add these potential VSBA resolutions to the agenda under new business. And then in Robert's rules, it talks about businesses brought before you either by a motion of a member or a presentation of the communication to the assembly. So Christina was talking last night about the agenda not matching what we were going to vote on. And I'm not sure if that's the same thing as adding something to the agenda and not being able to vote on it, but we clearly can vote on something like this. I think so the next project is to find out if that's only about annual meetings and town meetings or just where that comes from, but I couldn't find it. So we have no surprise visitors or individuals, just us. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, the clerk's report, and warrants in the total of $362,111.46?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And nobody's opposed, so that's aye. So committee reports. The policy council's meeting. The policy council is meeting right now. Energy committee did not meet. Did the finance committee?
Yes.
No. And the diversity committee?
Yes, we had a meeting and we wrote thank you notes to all of the community partners who helped us pull off the Diversity Day event, and then we talked about next year. We picked a book to read over the summer, which is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And we're going to be, who's around the committee, then we'll be discussing that at the monthly meetings. And the theme for next year's Diversity Day was chosen, which is showing up for justice. So more information to come about that topic.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any other committees? Okay. Noteworthy accomplishments, reports. Start with Lyle for a change, unless you were the last.
No, but I really didn't have anything to report because it was the second meeting of the month. So
there's nothing to report.
There's not really, we've closed up pretty much. Getting ready for summer, we'll have summer learning starting July 8th. It's all taking place at a road this year. Other than that, don't really have anything.
That reminds me, we will need to motion for summer hiring tonight. Okay. Yep. Hi, Cal.
Hi. So again, I didn't bring a report because we did one last time, but I will proudly say that we've graduated our 6th graders to move on to 7th grade. And Academy held their ceremony outside this year, which was a new thing, and it went really nicely. It was cooler outside.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah.
people had room to sit and could bring chairs, so that was really important. And we had our staff goodbyes yesterday, our final staff meeting, so it's always an emotional time. We're wishing people well who are moving on, and we're welcoming new staff members, and it's really an emotional time for everybody and a big transition. So
And from the 1% applications, a lot of people are going to be busy in the summer too.
yes, yeah.
Mark?
Yeah, very similarly to Cal. We had a great graduation on Monday night. Last day of school on Tuesday was very smooth, also sad. Some families leaving, lots of families are relocating, which happens every year. So there's quite a few tears on that last day of school. We also held a staff luncheon that afternoon. The same thing, it's kind of bittersweet. Celebrate the year, but also saying goodbye to some staff members who are moving on. But all in all, 2018-19 was a really great year at Green Street School, so very excited about that. I do have a final bid to bring to your attention tonight. So I brought all 3 of the actual contractor bids and then a summary sheet for you to take a look at. Summary sheets. And this is for the LED electrical upgrade, which is in the capital plan for fiscal year, this next upcoming school year. So the summary page is probably the easiest to follow, yeah. That's the details, but we received 3 quotes from King's Electric, Elm City Electric, and Lawrence and Lober. 2 of the 3 contractors included a rebate, energy efficient rebate. Elm City did not. So if you look at the first set of numbers for the 3 contractors, that's without any rebate. So King's Electric was 41.5, Elm City 45.6, and Lawrence and Lober 49.885. With the rebates, King's Electric calculated the total cost would be $38,620. Lawrence and Lober 44,125. Now, in budget planning for this project, we had budgeted $35,000 for the project, but been working with Frank on this. We're recommending to go with King's Electric. It's about a little over $3,000 more than what we had budgeted, but our other 2 projects, which you approved at the last meeting, were below what we had budgeted. So there's room there, and this is a project that will pay itself back over time.
Yeah. Well, we can have a look starting at the end of the summer and see after a year how much difference it makes.
And I noted that we will be working closely, the school district will be working closely with Efficiency Vermont to maximize incentives.
Any questions? I'd like to move to approve the bid for King's Electric for the LED program, Green Street.
Is this basically replacing all of the lighting in the school with LED?
We've already done the hallways, and we've seen a significant savings on that. This will be for all the classrooms.
Yeah.
So then we'll have a few offices to do as well.
Yeah.
But they bid it on all classrooms.
And it's more than bulbs because it has to be fixtures
fixtures,
that
yeah.
accommodate these
Yeah.
people. Well, it's still a step in the right
And there'll
direction.
be dimmer switches as well, so you can control the intensity of the light, which will be really nice.
Very useful, yeah. Anyone want those are the specific out there?
Well, it's nice to not be talking about whether lighting's going to make kids sick or not.
Right.
Those days are gone.
Yeah. This is for 16 total classrooms.
I move that we authorize the contract with King's Electric for the Green Street School LED upgrade.
Second?
Second?
Oh, you said you? No, I.
Oh, you asked for a second.
Hey, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Approved.
Thanks.
You go.
Here's the-
Actually, he does
Back.
have.
Mark and
He doesn't-
Kelly, I had
Yeah.
one question, because you brought up the issue of families moving on and made a comment that that's a regular part. I was just curious if both of you as principals have any sense of, is that mobility? Because I remember some years when I taught at Canal and Oak Road, when that was an unbelievable turnover.
Yeah.
The economic insecurity of families needing to relocate because of work, housing.
Yeah.
Can you give a little bit of an overview of how you, just not specific numbers, but are you sensing a kind of a stableness there, decrease over the years, or is it just somewhat unpredictable?
I'd say at Academy and Green Street,
It's about 10% of
transit
kids
rate, yeah.
leave during the summer that we don't know are leaving. And maybe they don't know until they do it.
Yeah, and then a number of families know that they're moving at the end of the year. Those are the kids that are really sad at the end of the day, prior to that.
I
But
also had some students, and you probably did too, who were commenting to staff, like, that, you know, they're homeless and the things that they're going to be looking at over the summer, and dealing with their families is pretty tough.
Yeah. In other words, summer vacation is not an up thought for everybody in the school.
It's a 2.5
For
month
some
stretch
families,
of
it's a
nothing.
crisis, an
Yeah.
ongoing
Yeah.
challenge.
And for some, if you're homeless, you may not be homeless in Brattleboro, but you can still come to the schools. So if there's no transportation, that's something that I'd like to work on with our family engagement people is if they're homeless in another town but attending a Brattleboro town school, how can we connect them with resources even if they're not here? Because if they're across the bridge in New Hampshire, they can't access summer camps that we could put in place for them, for example, just because of transportation.
in our school, social workers don't work during the summer, but, you know, families have their phone numbers, so they will be working from time to time
Yeah.
to work to support families with transitions.
And my last thing on this topic had to do with families that really depend on school lunches and food. Do we still have a program going through the schools in
Oh,
the
yeah.
summer?
Yeah, we
Is
do.
it at all three sites? Because I know some years it
It's
hasn't
all
been.
over the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So even if
beyond the
things-
schools,
The
park,
park-
even like
library.
parks.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
pool,
the
the rec
retreat
center,
farm's doing
yeah.
it this year.
It's really good.
Boys and Girls Club.
It's a whole list on Facebook that I think you just put out.
Oh, it wasn't me, but I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you.
Mariah, we don't do formal administrative reports, but if you have any noteworthy accomplishments, or anything you wanted to mention?
The partners just, again, wanted to say thank you. Thank you to Lyle, thank you to the board, thank you to all the principals for just being open to what we do and acknowledging us. So, thank you.
Do you think it would make, I don't know if anybody's talked formally about this or not, but makes sense for us to ask the merged board to have you join us until something formal gets arranged? Deb's going to be joining.
So I have been putting in place a plan with the administrators so that they'll all actually use Brattleboro Town's format for board reports. It will be way too much to have all the administrators come and give
Yeah,
a
that's
board
for sure.
report. So I've requested that they give those to me a week ahead of time. So I'll put together a packet for board members. But I think it would be great if I included Mariah in that, and she can continue to be sort of the liaison.
I would invite you if I Okay. So unfinished business, the first item is 1% applications.
Maybe we could let Mark go first because
Yeah,
I know
and
he
then
needs
he
to
can go first.
The board, you have them and have
Yes.
reviewed them? Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any further
Yeah,
comments
no.
beyond just if you have questions.
Any questions specific to the Green Street applications? Any comments from any people about, or just in general about this process or questions?
I noticed there was a few with cross-school collaborations, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're working together that way. And I hope maybe that will expand
Yeah,
in
maybe
the
we should do
new
more of it.
district.
Yeah.
I think the Antioch intern program is lending itself really well to that. There's a lot of cross-pollination happening that's really exciting.
I also like to see, it was good to see that a lot of people are actually looking at what they've been doing and evaluating that and then looking for what needs to change and what goals, adjusting the goals and moving, growing for the next time, for next year.
I will say teachers are super appreciative of the opportunity to be able to do this and use this
It's
1%.
it's theirs, it's in the
Yeah.
contract. And I think it's really, I think it's one of the reasons that our staff are pretty happy in positions, because they just, this is something that they can kind of determine what they really need to get to and get to it.
It really helps us just move things along smoothly too. A lot of work that's done really sets us up at the beginning of the school year. It's really nice.
And it's self-directed.
Yeah.
It comes from the teachers what the priority is.
I've heard from some teachers that they seemed surprised that what they asked for was approved. Like, wow, thank you guys so much that you just gave me the money. And I feel like I am so appreciative of how the things that the teachers come up with and say, we'd like to, create such and such a program or deepen our learning around this and that. And yeah, I feel the opposite. I'm like, thank you guys for coming up with these things that make our schools better. So I think it's a mutually beneficial system.
So we're gonna make sure we don't mess it up going forward.
I'd actually like to put in place something similar to this process here too. This is,
Yeah, it looks like there'll be a committee
yeah.
to look along at it. Okay. Well, I think all we need then is a motion to approve, should we just approve them as presented?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. Any further conversation on the 1% applications? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That
So we'll
passes
need
as presented.
definitely the church, the chairman, the clerk, and the
Oh, boy.
member.
And another member. Okay, well, I can get going on those.
Yeah.
I'm going to get back to the agenda first. Or actually,
I can sign them.
yeah, that would be best because the clerk is typing.
I am the clerk.
So tentatively schedule a summer retreat. This will probably be really challenging and then we may not need it. But
Wait. We're scheduling a summer retreat for our board
yeah, just in case.
in case
Why?
In
something
case the
happens
courts
between now and.
decide to stop the process. That's still not settled. I mean, we can wait, we don't have to do it, it's a tentative schedule, we cannot do it. It probably would be smarter to do it that way than to try and find a day that everybody might be available and then not do something else.
Is the merge board having a retreat of some sort?
I've talked with Christina
We're trying
about
to find
setting
the time, yeah,
a time,
yeah.
do some visioning, set some short-term and then long-term goals. So
And these are generally a one full day?
Usually late afternoon and a little bit of evening, food in between, at least for us, and it's usually here.
Yeah, it's usually at 1, starts at 1.
Right. It goes to 6 or something.
Well, I have no trouble myself setting a tentative date. It sounds like it's far from certain that it could happen.
Are there, you have a retreat somewhere in,
yes, we're doing
Early
our
August.
own work this year in Grafton, August 5th and 6th. Then the middle school leadership team is the 8th and 9th. I would guess most are back by the 19th, 20th, somewhere around in there.
I was going to suggest that week would be
Yeah.
good.
Principals are back by then.
well,
It's August 5th and 6th, did you say? Yeah, so that's for the administrative leadership team.
well, the Wednesday of that week, the 21st, would be our meeting date if we met in the summer. We've actually tentatively scheduled the 21st.
July 21st?
10th wedding
August.
anniversary.
August 21st.
It's your 10th wedding anniversary?
Yes.
Let's do another day then.
Okay,
Respectfully request.
Yeah, and we happily grant.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
So Monday or Thursday?
Dave can join.
And I'm gone Monday, so we're going over.
Okay,
that,
Thursday.
but-
Thursday the 22nd?
Thursday the 22nd?
I'm out of town that week, but
You am?
I'm gone. I have a gig, a week-long gig in Massachusetts that entire week. So
Is the,
Monday and Thursday are hard for me right now.
how about Tuesday, the 27th? Or is that, we already
We're
back? by
back.
then?
We're back.
Okay.
Well, you said the 21st was your What do you mean?
It's
So
possible.
is that
How
the
about
20th is
The
okay? or
week
no?
before,
Tuesday the 20th is okay?
Andy can't be there.
Oh, you can't do that, sorry.
About the
What?
14th, the Wednesday before.
Okay,
If people are
that
here.
works for me.
Yeah.
it works for
I
me.
have an appointment in the afternoon, but I can join you right after that,
And what time is your appointment?
1 to 2:30.
So we could, yeah, we could start later and not
Yeah.
stay as long.
2:30 and
Okay, great.
2:30 on the 14th.
I will check with Deb and see if we can do it here. Because this is the place with the air conditioning.
I know this is tentative, but what is usually done at the board retreat?
I'm sorry,
And
that just
how
got changed
is
to a
it-
Tuesday,
Yeah, oh no, Wednesday, August 14th.
Wednesday, okay.
So, and how do these things that come beforehand feed into it?
So in the past, we've talked about goals, board goals.
Yep.
And mainly that's what, how, looking at goals, if there need to be things like community forums around any topics with our goals, tentatively scheduling that, tentatively putting together a board work plan for the year, that type of thing.
And so do these, I would assume that some of it involves also, because I know everybody has strategic goals, some type of looking at those, even if they're tentative, so that things are aligned, or at least we have those in mind. Is that the case, or?
Usually we look at those, hi Deb, when we've done individual school visits, that's when we've kind of looked at more of the strategic plans.
Okay. When does
But
that?
it doesn't mean we could,
Oh, okay.
I mean, I feel like it's open to whatever you guys all feel like you want to do.
At the retreat, we actually pick dates for those school presentations.
Oh, okay.
So
And other things that we know are coming up, but
Yep.
there are some things that have to be approved or. Basically, it's putting together a work plan.
Yeah.
Is what it's become, what are we gonna work on this year?
So it would be the case if the merged board was, if this board no longer existed, this meeting would still stand, or?
No.
Okay.
It's just a-
No, we'll have to meet sometime in August, I think,
Yeah.
to sign off on the audit.
Yeah, if
And
it's
that's
done by
about it.
then.
If it's done by then,
Yeah.
it's done.
Okay. So maybe we can just, if there isn't a retreat needed, we can make this our meeting to approve
If the
that.
audit's done, yeah.
Just that, because we know everyone can come, so.
Well, I have to check. I don't know if I don't know what the schedule is at work,
Oh.
whether I can take the time or not. So just
Okay,
because I don't have everybody's schedule. So
well, maybe we could just make it like at 5 PM, the normal time on the day if it's,
right, if you're not.
yeah, if it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
a,
we can change the
we
time,
don't have to do it that long.
as long as Deb is flexible with the key to the door.
Whoever else wants to sign these. It has to just be any
No,
Oh, you just need a
Kim and I
mental.
have to sign.
chairman, member.
It's just the top.
Okay,
It's the top of each three.
It's, no.
so we got that done.
Once you
Um,
unlock it, each one
individual.
needs to be signed separately.
The second item is explore hiring permanent substitutes as a remedy to the shortage of candidates. That came out of a conversation,
Yes.
and I'm not sure it was executive session now, but there was a conversation
Yeah,
about that.
I
as
don't
a
think we
possible-
have ever discussed it in executive session.
Good, good. And we don't have to, but I just wanted to find out if we wanted to say anything about that, or if we wanted to look into that, or for ourselves, we could talk about it at the retreat if we're still here, and if not, we could bring it to
Yeah.
the merged board. I think the idea was to have a cadre of really competent people. They might be part-time, or actually, if they were all 30 hours, we wouldn't have to, and retired with Medicaid or something, we wouldn't have to, there are a bunch of ways to do it. But that rather than sort of not having people that we really know are confident of with our students.
The reason I had brought that idea up was just because I think it's really stressful on kids when there's someone they don't know in the class, and since there's gonna be 10 schools in the district, it seemed like there would be enough regular need for subs, that it might make sense to just employ some full-time floaters. And that way we could have much more knowledge and control over the people going into the classrooms. It would be less stress on the kids, and it might just save kind of the stress of not knowing if you're gonna find somebody.
So we've talked about this at the administrative level with the principals a couple of months ago. It came up. It's certainly an idea that we are in favor of. The issue was basically we use between 60 and 90 subs a day in Wyndham Southeast. So 10 would probably mean we could assign one per school, with the understanding that, for instance, if Green Street didn't need a sub that day, that person would be shifted to another place. It's something that they do in other areas where they have a permanent subs and you go where you're sent. It's something that I've also brought to the union to talk about with them as well. It probably does mean benefits. It would be a benefited position, but because it's a benefited position, it means we can hire people that we think are really good at it. And we also can say it's a benefited position, and here are the expectations that if you're not needed at the school, you will go to another school.
Which a lot of people might really like, and the benefit, well, it makes it really kind of a good job.
It really does.
Except being so is an incredibly hard job.
I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on something you said a minute ago. 60 to 90 people
Oh, yeah.
per day?
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably not even including.
And that does
EES.
not include EES. No.
You're talking Wyndham Southeast.
I'm talking
Yeah.
Wyndham Southeast.
Yeah, but that's still really many people. I mean, I also wonder if, and I don't know, I know this is like adding a little bit of cost because of all the people's benefits that we currently don't pay subs that, but do you think one per school is enough, given that there's that high of a need? Especially, does it make sense to hire one sub for Oak Grove and one for Academy that has 3 times as many classrooms?
Yep.
I mean, maybe we should ask for like one per strand at least. And I don't know what would be a right number to, I mean, this isn't way out of our purview, but like, how many would be needed at like the BAMs and high school level if they have those huge schools? They're gonna need more than one person.
Yeah. They could use, like this time of year, definitely, they could use all 10 of them.
Yeah,
In the
but it's just a
winter-
matter, are we gonna pay benefits for every single sub that we
It's
use
gonna be
ever?
very expensive.
It's gonna be expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can't hire 60 to 90 extra paras, but I wonder if 10 might be too low of a number, but I don't know.
And it would be something that we can look at, daily average. And the last few times I've looked, it's been in the spring. And people between days that they have for personal days or different sick days. People take days for a lot of reasons.
I also wonder if this might, I don't know if how the finances of this would play out, but I would be interested to know if there's any correlation, and I don't know if you guys track this at all, but correlation between incidences of disciplinary needs and subs. In my personal experience, there's like a 1-to-1 correlation. So I would guess that it would really improve student behavior to have a known quantity coming into the classroom.
Yes. And the other thing we've looked at is cutting, so we've always done grade level meetings, which has meant that one day in October, one day in March, all the second grade.
Sixth grade, yeah.
Right, so we're changing that so that we will have, October 15th is going to be the first sort of grade level meeting, so that it's not a student day, so we won't need subs, so cutting down that way as well, just looking at our schedule,
Okay.
how we can cut down on the need for subs.
Yeah, just doing that alone will cut back on each strand of grade levels of subs, which is significant amount of subs. So we're saving a lot of money by creating our own SU PD day. and developing it ourselves and having it a non-student day. I think it's a really exciting
Yeah.
step for us.
A couple other possibilities, maybe a good way to develop our own paras, for permanent in-class or employees or potential teachers. And possibly make the coverage, if the quality was good enough, be able to have more grade level meetings, if it wasn't really significant loss in the classroom.
A couple of years ago, I hired basically somebody who was on the sub list who was really good, had a connection to our school,
Can I have the ones you already signed in?
and basically said, why don't you plan on coming every single day? And he did that for the first half of the year until he found another job. It was amazing to have like a super qualified, engaging adult who was flexible to meet different holes where we had none. So I have experience with it, not in a formal way, but in a way where we had it for about half a year, and it was extremely helpful.
And even though 10 wouldn't be enough, using a person that you've trained and they've gotten to know the kids and they know the staff and they know the classroom and how it runs, a person like Mark can put that sub in the place where the sub is most needed and be most effective. So that if there is a class that tends to be more challenging than another, then that sub would be known and could go in there.
Or the classes that don't have a para,
Yeah.
so that's like they're the only person in there.
I wanted to ask a kind of historical question because I know a bunch of years ago we switched over to an online system. My own personal approach when I was a school teacher was to avoid needing a subs at all cost. That was my personal philosophy because it was so much more work for me as a music teacher to create all these lesson plans for all these different. But I was curious when we went to the online thing, what I felt as a teacher was that it had been sort of managed by the school secretary, administrative genius, who had personal connections with people. So if a classroom, oh my goodness, Mary's class needs a sub, I know just the person to call. And it was sort of managed by a human being. And I felt like when that system came in, I was supposed to, as a music teacher, name people from this list that I thought would be good. But when it finally came time to request them, they weren't available. It felt like a distance had been introduced into the system when it used to be this kind of a little fly by the seat of the pants. But people like Sue Strong, the legendary Sue Strong, she knew where to find subs that would work for different classes just because it was based on her own knowledge and her own instincts and her own ability to twist people's arms. I really need you in here Wednesday. I hope you can do it. What's your perspective? Did the moving to the online thing have any positive thing? Or
I would say maybe we lost a little bit of that, but I think we gained it in the sanity of our admin assistants and the amount of time that they have now.
Right. I'm painting it a
They're not
little
doing that.
positive. It must have been
It was severe.
a terrible job
Yeah, it was
for
really
them
tough.
to deal with.
Really tough. So now, like, teachers have to have that responsibility, and it's not just going into the office and having one person, do that, which is really, it was a challenge. So I think the online system has been a positive. I would say.
I'm glad to hear that.
And the principals always has the option to say, you know what, I need this person here instead. And subs, when they sign up, we are very clear with them that you may be signing up for this job, but when you get there, you need to be ready because there may be a higher need. They may be able, like Robin said, there might be a para in that room that can cover, but there's a need somewhere else, so the sub has to be put someplace else.
But I think it's a great topic to continue to explore because the reality is when we have subs in the building, and as good as they are, it's a loss. It's a loss.
And we spend a lot of money
Yeah.
on them. For margin.
How often do you call a sub who just says, no, I don't want to come in? Like I just anecdotally, as now that I'm retired, I've talked to other retired teachers who like being subs because if they get a call, they can come or not. You'd be asking, I'm guessing, for a higher level of commitment if you're a hired sub you can't just say, I don't feel
Well, I
like
think
coming
that
in
we're
today.
talking about, you
Your
have,
full-time
you have a
position.
job.
It's your
You
job.
come to school every day to school. You
So I'm
have
just
a parent, you
wondering
can't be
how
like,
that
"Nah,
would,
I'm gonna come to
whether
the-"
that same pool of people would be as interested in making that commitment, when right now we might have a group of people who, what they really love about it is they get the call and they go, yeah, that fits into my week nicely, I have those 3 days, I'll do it. And they might say, no, it's not gonna work for me, but they're registered as a sub because they like that freedom and that flexibility. So I'm just throwing that in, not to debate it,
Yeah.
but I think it's a part of
Well,
it.
I think if we're hiring 10 paras to be floating subs, and we have the need for 60 to 90 subs a day, there's still gonna be plenty of room for the retired teachers who want low commitment
good.
jobs to
Yes.
come in.
Very good.
And they'll also have the issue if they can't make too much money on top of their retirement, so they wouldn't be able to take a full-time job.
Right.
But
Sure.
we do have some subs, like we have one in Academy who does anything from the front desk answering phones to the library to music class to any grade. And so that's someone who I know would be interested. It's people like that, you probably have them too, that they live close to our schools, they want to be
Sure.
there, they know all the kids.
Hey, a quality sub is worth gold. I used to
Yeah.
know a couple people that I would reach out to, and if they could do it, oh man,
Oh, I know.
wonderful.
Emily, you had a thought about that?
A related question is, how many classrooms have co-teachers?
Well,
Or
it's
do they only
not
have for certain-
classrooms that have
Okay.
co-teachers. It's, at least for Green Street, it's subject areas.
Okay.
So we really, a couple of years ago, we focused on creating a co-teaching model in math to help with differentiation. And so currently, we basically co-teach our tier 1 math, K through 6. And that is, quite a puzzle to make happen. So I can't really explain in detail right now how we do that, but it's part of the master schedule, and it's a commitment that we've made as a school. So,
In an academy?
Yeah, we don't, I mean, you could call it co-teaching for some content areas, but we don't have a formal model in place for any co-teaching.
The reason I was just asking is it seems like some of the permanent sub question relates to co-teaching, because if you did have co-teaching, like in your mathematics, there's actually things I would assume progress as normal because you have another teacher in there.
yes.
Or if you have a support professional who's always in that classroom,
Right.
they can, as David I think mentioned before,
They
they
can
can step
teach.
up. So it might be, I don't want to broaden the conversation too much, and I know co-teaching can be a nightmare and it can also be a challenge if it's not, it takes a lot to implement it correctly, where both teachers feel really like they own the subject. But it would be interesting to commingle some of it to say, like, how do we think about this comprehensively? Because it might be that we have the resources already in our schools and this can complement it and make like a really amazing system. But it would probably have to be pushed out over many years, I would think. So,
If the teacher's absent, a lot of times the lesson would be taught by an academic support teacher or by the parent.
if they're in that classroom
Right.
anyway. Yeah. Thank you.
No action required on this, but I'm glad we got to have the conversation. I was unaware of all this. It seems like a really good idea. We do need a motion to pre-approve any necessary hiring over the summer.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion of that? I think it's sort of self-explanatory. Okay, all in favor of pre-approving necessary hiring over the summer, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we got that done. The one other item is on the, I put on the agenda at the beginning, so if you weren't here, you weren't here for it. And these are two resolutions from from Dan MacArthur of the Marlboro School
So are
Board.
these together?
Yeah, the two go together.
Oh, sorry.
To take up to the VSBA for their consideration as resolutions of the VSBA. That may be enough for the board and Lyle. And there's really no reason for you folks. These are about building, the school building construction and watching out how much carbon we use in new school construction. You're welcome to home.
Great. Before we leave, I'd just like to say thank you for your work.
You're welcome.
And supporting
Thanks for
us. And I'd also like to say thank you to Kelsey for an amazing note-taking year and for completing her leadership internship. She did a fabulous job.
You know, there's a job open in the same field if you're interested.
I saw that.
You better.
I didn't get an email interest from you.
Right.
Are you going to be leading somewhere?
I will be on maternity leave for about a year now.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Terrific. Terrific.
Thank you all.
Thank you, have a great summer, and
Thanks, appreciate it.
hopefully there's work and play.
Oh, thank you.
So these are, the VSBA processes, they have a deadline, right, I think pretty close to this time of year, where they ask if any boards or individuals, I guess, too, can submit resolutions to the resolution committee, and it's a group of people from around the state, and they talk them all over and decide whether to approve them, to recommend changes, or to disapprove them, not recommend them. And then the VSBA convention in the fall, they are discussed and approved, and they make they really are the guiding principles for the VSBA. It doesn't really have a charge from, and it's a private organization, it's a private membership organization. So these are the things that, between annual meetings, these are the things that guide the work of the staff. And these two, I'll shut up and you can read them. Actually, I'll read them aloud for the viewing public. So the first one is about carbon, and or at least that's the way the heading was. And it's, whereas global climate problems will be one of the major issues facing today's students as they age, and whereas the buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is one of the main factors contributing to climate change, and one which schools can directly affect, and whereas school transportation, including publicly run school buses, and parents and teachers driving their own cars contribute significantly to carbon dioxide buildup, and whereas small rural schools are often closest to the homes of the students in Vermont, resulting in the shortest bus rides and the most efficient way to get students to school, therefore be it resolved that the VSBA will consider the impact on the environment when deciding whether to support legislation and initiatives, and let the environmental impact be a deciding factor when the VSBA is otherwise neutral. And for examples, they give school construction aid. An initiative is being proposed which makes school construction aid available to school districts, with priority given to districts which are closing one school building down to consolidate. In most cases, this will require more transportation and more carbon buildup in the atmosphere. In many cases, the construction aid could be used more effectively to renovate and make more efficient the existing school buildings. And another example is transportation policies. At the district level, transportation policies should encourage and support public school busing to make school buses as convenient and timely as possible. Did I say that right? This will cut down on the need for private transportation and will get the next generation comfortable with the supportive concept of a good public transportation system. So they're actually pretty far-reaching, or that one is pretty far-reaching. And the question is, would we like to endorse that along with the Marlboro School Board and send it up to the VSBA for consideration and deliberation?
The essence of this is the part under therefore. It's basically asking the VSBA to consider the
That's the
impact on the
resolution.
environment as a deciding factor when there's a policy that they're neutral on endorsing.
That's the resolution.
Yeah.
That's the guiding principle.
I mean, it would seem to align with, if you think about the conversations going on more broadly in the merged district, this would seem to be aligned with also keeping small schools because they're closer.
Yes,
So-
both of them are.
I think that
There's
that's.
a
have an
there's a
equivalence
subtext.
towards that,
Yeah,
yes,
they both
yes.
get to that, yeah.
So
Well, it's a small school.
Which
that
I,
seems good. So I would say,
Well, I think it also aligns with what we're hearing from the kids, from the students. And this is a major issue, and it's not going away the way topical issues generally do. It's bigger than a topical issue.
What are our current school buses in Wyndham's Southeast using for fuel? Because I know that some of our public buses have switched over to natural gas because it's less of a carbon-producing fuel, so.
There are electric buses on campus, and small, well, not small, on college campus.
Yeah,
Big buses, but
but I was thinking that, not to change this, but it's clearly about transportation and the environment, but it's also about some pushback because the Vermont School Boards Association has been very unapologetically pro-merger. And this is basically saying, look at another aspect of consolidating schools. I'm not sure how effective it will be, but I'm in favor of it.
it ultimately refers to legislation, so it's hard to know how effective it will be.
I know that Dan MacArthur has been a bit of a minority voice on the Vermont, I mean, he's been representing a kind of a, what we would call a, an, I don't know the right word for it, another perspective at the Vermont School Boards Association. His perspective coming from a small, rural, somewhat isolated school in terms of connections to other. We used to be amazed when we were in the same district as Dover and Marlboro, how long it took to get the kids from Dover to Marlboro, and we're in the same school district, and it's all back dirt roads. So I know where he's coming from with this, and I'm in favor of it. I'm not sure how effective it is in that body, but I'm personally in favor of it.
I'd like to move that we support, see what the actual words we're supposed to be using are for.
I mean, to kind of put it into our situation in this district, because he's just asking for sort of collegial support, because he's not connected to our school district here or our supervisory unit.
No, he's
But
the
this isn't about just one school.
Exactly, but if we put it into our context, if there was a discussion about closing one of the outlying schools in the Wyndham Southeast School District, this would suddenly become relevant.
Yeah.
This way of thinking and this
And
line.
the way, for this process, it's the Marlboro School Board is going to present this. If the Brattleboro School Board wants to support it, then those two boards will be on the bottom. And it's going to Westminster. And anybody else that's meeting this in the next 2 weeks in the county is getting these and being asked to sign on.
Do you think people will, so the transportation policy sounds good on its own. One thing to think about is when you think about the merged district, I know that this is just saying policies that they're considering, but I wonder if there's any concern about, if you're talking transportation, sometimes people live closer to other schools, and we just talked about school choice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you put that front and center for an argument, you say, okay, well, there should be more school choice because I live right down the road from Demerson, but I'm bused all the way to Academy. So I don't know, it seems related to me, but I wonder from people who've had a little more experience on the board, how does that come into play when we're advising VSBA to think about this? Because it could then turn against us in one sense.
The language in this, though, is specific to deciding whether to support legislation and initiatives. So anyone could say, well, you guys supported that VSBA thing, then you're hypocrites to consider not doing the school choice thing. Anyone could make that criticism, but there's nothing in this that is about the decisions of local school boards. It's just about whether or not to support legislation and initiatives at the state level.
And the VSBA serves as our lobbyists in Montpelier. Well, some would argue with that, but and so this is advice, and these resolutions are to advise the staff on how to approach issues that come up, because they can't obviously poll everybody, and if they did, they would get thousands of different opinions about what to do. So,
But
and
this
do you
is-
like this enough to?
Can I just ask a question about this? These initiatives would be voted on by the people attending? Or is it for the
Yes.
VSBA to just choose whether they
The VSBA Resolutions Committee, which is appointed, people volunteer for it from around the state.
Okay,
They make recommendations to the VSBA annual meeting. The people that attend the annual
Okay.
meeting vote them up or down.
so it's the school board members that are at that meeting are the ones that are gonna vote on this, but this is just asking, should the motion be endorsed by our board as well as
Right.
whoever else says
Right.
yes to it?
Okay, one more question.
Yeah,
So the school construction aid, I completely understand. What would be, if the transportation policy wasn't there, what would be the alternative? Because it's saying essentially support public school busing. But is there, I mean, what's the alternative? Are there other districts that aren't supporting public school busing? Or has the VSBA in the past not made decisions, or there's legislation that wouldn't?
no, I think this is leaning toward a good, it's an example that it would be a good idea to have good public transportation systems and efficient ones, but I think it's just an example. If a bill came to the
Oh, wait,
legislature
this is the example, sorry.
that,
Yep.
you know, we're not, it doesn't recommend that policy, it's just an
Yeah,
example of
okay.
something that might come up that would have an environmental, where
Okay.
some environmental impact could happen.
These are actually interacting with one another too.
But we have to do it separately.
I know,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, before we vote, there is a connection between the two. And I would say that basically what Dan is doing here is wanting some support when he presents these to that committee. These are both pro when small schools are on the cusp. What do we do with small schools? This is a pro-small school agenda. He's saying, because the VSBA, there's been talk of having a little bit of a penalty, saying that we're going to make school construction money more easily flow to districts that are reducing the number of schools. And this is a little pushback there. And the same thing with school transportation, saying that a small school is actually, in some cases, is an environmental plus, rather than moving more children greater distances. So, I mean, I basically see it as, when I look at the Marlboro situation, that Dan has been so influential in guiding through their independence. To vote on these is to vote on looking in favor of small schools and some of the benefits that they have in terms of efficient transportation, and they shouldn't be penalized when construction or repair aid is sent out. That, you know, those money is used to to guide people's decisions. So it's complicated. I'm feeling like they're. You read both. I just read through both of them, and they feel like they're interacting with one another. I mean, the example in one is the subject of construction, which is the topic of the other one. So it's an interesting set of documents.
I didn't read the other one yet. Are
Why don't we, let's read the other one, and then we can decide to vote on either one or both afterwards. Rob, you have a question?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, are we voting on this or before we go on there? But we just
Plus,
answered it.
I
Well,
recommend
so the
you
public
read both
knows
of
what we're
them,
talking
because I
about.
think I feel like I get the underlying purpose of these better when I've read both of them and not looked at them individually.
So the second one has to do with school building construction aid. Whereas many Vermont schools are in need of repair and upgrading, both for safety and for education, and whereas Vermont at one time had a school building construction aid budget, which allowed districts to apply for a cost share with the state for capital improvements to address these needs. And whereas Vermont suspended the school building construction aid temporarily in 2007 and has not had a cost share budget since then. And whereas there has been talk of reopening a school building construction aid cost share with the state, actually there's legislation pending. And whereas there has also been talk of limiting the cost share for school building construction aid to schools merged through Act 46, and whereas all Vermont schools still operating, whether merged or not, equally house and educate our children, and all children deserve to be equitably safe and educated. Therefore, let it be resolved that the VSBA supports the reinstitution of the school building construction aid cost share, and that the VSBA supports that this budget be available to all school districts in Vermont.
Do you know
That's yet another equity issue.
if that legislation that you mentioned, does it include language that would limit the,
Yes.
okay, so
Yeah,
this
it
is,
says pretty much.
this is asking for a change to the existing legislation.
Well, it didn't get acted on. There were hearings held, it was penned, it was
Right.
introduced
The,
and talked about in committee, but it didn't get out of committee and nobody's voted on it.
okay, asking for a change to the pending legislation, I should have said.
Yeah, well, if the legislation comes up, this is what the VSBA would support in our names.
Okay,
So this is.
but it would be asking for a change from the bill as written.
But we don't, the bill might change anyway.
Okay,
There's been a lot of pushback. The idea is that, and it makes perfect sense, that a lot of districts have merged. They've got more kids in a building, so they need to expand the building, or they've got they didn't do what we've been doing all along, which is spend money all along to keep the buildings up to speed, or they're so old or so small that they can't really make a modern learning facility out of them, and they really need to do that, and a lot of it has to do with the merging. So that's what, the idea is to, we passed this law to make these people do this work, and now the buildings aren't adequate, so we need to get money to those buildings, to that. That's the idea behind the current legislation. And this is saying, yeah, that's great, but in the meantime, we have other places that need it too, and it needs to be equitable.
Have we not had a state cost share? I mean, I'm feeling a little.
Not since we finished that up there.
So
and they
all
said,
of
"No
the money
more."
that, as a town meeting rep, we have been approving to help with all this
Yes.
stuff, we've just been burying that.
Yeah.
since 2007.
Yep.
Yeah. Luckily, the high school was one of the biggest projects
Yeah.
ever done with that.
Yeah.
And that was one of the last
The
ones.
last one.
And one of the last,
It kind of put a sour taste in everybody's mouth. Beautiful building. Everybody comes down and says, wow, what a beautiful building. And it's now being maintained, but for a long time, it wasn't maintained, not well enough. So, do we want to vote these separately? Do we need further conversation? Anybody want to go home?
Do you have any comment on either of these resolutions?
I totally, I try not to be political, so I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah. I think, well, I will say, since you used the P word, I think, they are ultimately political, he's looking for political support.
And the
As
Vermont
the-
School Boards Association
as
is a
it's-
political lobbying organization.
And it is
It's
a lobbying
all-
organization, so I think it's all above board.
It's all
but
consistent.
that's what it is.
Yep.
That what we're really talking about here is, there are times when you're deciding about what to do with a small school, and the VSBA has pretty much been a pro-merger, and yet this legislation is saying, let's use school construction as a way to further cement people's commitment to merging, and say that if you don't merge, that you could be writing yourself out of future school improvement funds.
Well, that's all settled though. I mean, you're merged. That's it. I mean, unless the court changes it. So it wouldn't, if places haven't merged, it's because.
Well,
like
Marlboro is an example
Or Vernon,
of a
where they-
non-merged school.
Yeah,
So
because there was no.
there's enlightened self-interest in
Yeah.
these things, and again, I'll just be upfront myself, feeling like we're neighborly school districts doing what we can in our own neighborhoods for the benefit of our students. I feel a certain affinity toward the efforts of Dan and the role he's played on the VSBA to bring in some other points of view. I see no harm in supporting it, so I'm personally going to vote yay for them.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would move that we're going to do them one at a time, that we would start off with the climate issue and the role of small schools and sometimes being part of an efficient system that should be considered. I move that we support that.
The one on the
resolution.
impact of the environment?
Yes, the one that
When
begins
deciding
with the carbon issue,
Is
with
there-
relating to small
Is there a
schools.
second?
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, done with that one. And the second one, we resolved that the VSBA supports the institution of the school building construction aid cost share for all school districts. So we'd like to move that as well.
I would move that we support this resolution to the VSBA regarding the disbursement of potential, it's not past legislation, but potential school building construction aid, and that we support it be distributed in a fair, regardless of merged or non-merged.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. And further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any further business to conduct? to
I
come
have
before-
some
Oh,
business.
You do? Oh, I didn't know that.
You've been waiting over there.
So because we don't know whether or not this is our
Yes.
last meeting or not, I do want to acknowledge you. I guess if we come back together as a board, then I guess maybe you can return these. So be careful with that.
And we can write out the dates.
Right.
Save it for 7 years. just in case.
So first to David Scholes for 10 years of service as school board director, board clerk, and board chair. So thank you very much. Andy Davis, your service as school board director.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, thank you.
It's a nice gesture.
Robin,
Appreciate that.
for 2 years of service as the school board director. Emily,
Yeah.
for your time as a school board director. And Kim, for 5 years of service as school board director and board vice chair. You're welcome, thank you, thank all of you.
Well, as a severe novice here, I would say this is a really grand group of people that really put
It's a good group.
a good school district first and trying to do what's best and support quality education. I've learned a lot and I've met a lot of nice people, and I hope to continue giving to our schools in some fashion.
Don't worry, we will draw you in.
But
It is
it's
kind
been
of
an
amazing.
educational experience for me.
And it's kind of amazing though, the people that are attracted to these schools and to work in them, to run them and to oversee them. It's really, I mean, we really don't have a lot of really intense issues. Not a lot goes wrong.
Well, it's a huge amount of work, and I'm afraid it's not getting less.
You notice that?
I've noticed that.
We left-
My hat is off to you folks.
We left the career center at 10:30 last night.
Yeah.
And we started at 6:30.
6:30, yeah.
Can I ask one little question that I've really enjoyed whenever over the years came to a school board, the administrative reports. That's always been an enjoyable thing in these few months I've been on the board. It's a window into what's going on in our schools, and I'm wondering, is that going to be a feature of the merged board?
Probably not, just because of time, but my idea, and I have not talked to the merged board about this at all yet, it would be something I'd want to talk about during a retreat, would be, as I said, to have a board, an administrative report in a similar format as what you get, but as we move these meetings around from site to site, when we're at Green Street does a presentation for
I
us. And then when we're in Putney, it's Putney
Right.
doing the presentation. So we do get to go to each school, hear from each administrator. I would encourage administrators to bring in teachers or whomever, so that part of that will be.
Right. Still have some presentations that are selected, but yeah, it would be ungainly to try to have a full administrative report from each site.
You only have to sign the top one.
Oh,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, I signed all
Yeah.
of those.
Nope, you only have to
That's,
sign.
Oh,
that's the way we've been doing it for
Thought you know what happened.
over
For
years.
some reason, the last time, the time when we went and did it at the office, I asked that, like, I just have to sign the top one, right? And then she was like, no, you gotta sign all of them, so then I was like,
No, you only have to sign.
Well, I've been going in because I haven't had time to, I can't read them here, so I've been going in and I've been taking the little sticky things and putting them on there for them. They weren't there this time.
Well, just
I think
So
briefly,
I got confused because I went in and that's.
I think I've always seen your name on all the different pages, like David did it. Because I'm so new.
well, just reviewing those is an education, because you realize the depth and the variety of
40 pages of
expenses.
dental bills.
Yeah.
Hopefully all of them will be
electronically sent now
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I know we
They have to
haven't
be.
been receiving these electronically. Then it would be much more,
Yeah.
less cumbersome.
Before we complete our meeting, I just feel like it would be incomplete as we were just honoring everyone's service to not also honor Jill Stahl-Tyler, who served on this board for I believe it was 8 years, as well as extensive volunteerism in the schools and starting the Brattleboro School Endowment. So I just wanted to put that out there to the universe that even though she's not on the board anymore, that her impact was huge on this board and on the schools in this town.
And continues to invite students from abroad to come and live in the community.
Yes.
Are you making a motion or a resolution, or are you just?
No, just
Just
as all
say
of
it.
our names and years of service were honored, I just wanted to extend that to Jill, who was on the board for a very long time up until the last few months.
And I would also
We've been trying
thank
to
you,
do that for a
Lyle,
long time.
for just being a constant
This seemed like right to me.
Yes,
Perfect.
level presence through all of this. And I know it's been a ride
It's been a ride.
these last couple of years. You have been a constant, stable force, just looking at contingencies and what needs to be done and what might happen and what we should be doing to make those different scenarios, we would be prepared for them, and maybe we're moving into some smoother sailing here, which I think you will appreciate.
Absolutely.
I think you and Ann Beekman are the only two people who will actually have to attend less meetings now.
I think you might be right. Ann and I often joke, like, how many times are we gonna be together this week?
Well, it depends on how deep a hole the committees dig. But
That's true,
Yeah,
that's true.
Now, is there any continued talk about adding members to the board?
Yes. It came up and was voted down not to do the 5222, to not propose an amendment, but since it's been mentioned over and over and over again, one of the things we have to do is get more people on the board. So I think it's just enough time. Actually, I think the work has pulled everybody out of their, my school or my town mode, and just looked at, oh my God. We need
So
more people.
the merged board declined to propose an amendment of 5 Brattleboro members?
Well, there
Yes.
was, the case was that it seemed like there wasn't enough, there was a big conversation about the legality of doing that and then how the votes had to be commingled or not commingled. So it seemed like we didn't have enough information, and it was voted down and proposed that we talk more to a lawyer. They wanted to be more vetted because it felt last minute, but the nice thing, at least for the representation piece, is none of the amendments are going out yet. So there is this is my own personal hope, is that there is an option that maybe if something gets settled with the lawyers and everything, that, because essentially over the summer isn't a great time to have people come out and vote. So, and we just passed a motion last night saying that the leadership councils would be done through a policy instead of through an amendment. So it looks like a lot of these might be able to be grouped together if the board can come to some consensus about representation, and that it could be proposed in an ideal world to the voters.
Are you talking about when the transition board decided not to propose an amendment, or are you talking about like another vote happened after that where someone said, let's have 5222 and then everyone voted it
Another
down?
vote happened after that with the new board.
Okay.
Wasn't that the case, David?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the email, because the attorney said that his opinion was that the 2222 was not going to be legal. in the
Right,
long
I
run.
remember
And
hearing about
but some
that.
other proportion that recognized the difference. It wouldn't have to be 5 or 6 or exactly. He thought we could get away with something that wasn't exactly proportional. And I think it may be that it's like, I can't think of it. It's, okay, not 5, but 4. People go along with 4, but not 5. It seems like that's what people are sort of leaning toward, but it hasn't come up yet.
But in the
Amendment
email from
hasn't
the
yet.
attorney, what I thought he said was that it didn't have to be proportional, which would have been like 9222.
Right.
That you could do something less
Like
than that,
5,
like
yeah.
5. It was his example. So I'm wondering, where did they get the idea that what the attorney said was not legally?
No, I don't know
No,
that
it wasn't.
anybody got that idea, I'm just
They
saying.
got the idea too that it was a change, if I remember correctly, a change in how the votes were. Essentially, right now, everybody votes for everybody.
Mhm.
And there was conversation from the attorney that said if you did this 5-2-2-2, then you would be voting for your just Brattleboro representatives. Even though it wasn't proportional, there was some type of change to how the votes, I don't know if you
So,
remember. because
My
now it's on the
understanding
ballot.
was that if we wanted Brattleboro to just vote for Brattleboro, Putney just for Putney, then it would be something like 9-1-1-1. And that was not acceptable to
Anybody.
anybody.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So in order to keep it, in order to do anything else, we have to commingle. And I think that's still the question, sort of, so what's acceptable? And are people okay with commingling? If not, then we have to come up with the proportional.
It seemed like everyone was fine with the commingling, though. I'm just wondering how did it get decided that the 5-2-2-2 wasn't a fit with that?
Yeah, I don't know the background.
Well, and nothing really has been, I mean, the amendment committee's gonna have
Right,
to
we're
take it
gonna-
up
I
and.
think next week, actually.
Wasn't there
we
early on,
said it, but we are,
early on in this process, there was this thought that maybe some of the amendments could even be presented at the time of the budget?
Not, they need,
Never,
they need
but
the
that-
30 days. the 30
But
day
the
warning.
thing is, that what I sort of understood from reading all these minutes is that it's just better to get this board going and the budget passed and the amendment process
Well, the
can
amendment
be
has
like
to
a
be,
phase two, like, and maybe a more optimum
it
time.
can't be on
than-
the same day because it has to be by Australian ballot.
Right.
So it
On the
wouldn't be
amendment.
able
Yes,
to be
and-
done then.
And
That
it was
actually
not
was the
fair to
question.
have the people that usually people that man the voting centers are some of
Can't
your
vote.
most vocal
Passionate.
and passionate at town meetings. They're the ones that come and they're the ones who speak and they're the ones who ask questions. And you've got them manning the polling center, they can't be in, and it's not fair.
Yeah, so when is a possible time amendments might come forward?
I think we're looking at September now.
Likely,
Let
Barb and I,
August go, yeah.
we did the 40-30. If we wanted it to be in August, then we'd have to warn it next week. And that really isn't enough time,
No.
because we have to work on the amendments, send them to the attorney will put them in lawyer speak,
Right.
and then
And
send them
then
back.
approve them.
And then, then warn
And when
them.
you say August, that would mean rolling it in with a primary election.
That might, the smart thing might be to do it in November when everybody's going. to
Yeah, I was
anyway.
gonna say November,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I know that they talked about the cost of holding these elections. Why don't we just do it when we're already having an election, then we're not adding any costs, we're just adding questions onto the
I
existing
think
law.
everybody was looking at hoping for a much shorter time frame because some of the amendments people feel are pretty important.
But I don't
But one
think
of the things
September to November
I
is
was out of
very
the room when we
significant.
talked, when it came up last
You'll
night,
also get a much
the
better-
policy on leadership council, did we decide to warn that or?
We didn't warn it, but they did decide that that's how we would proceed with
So,
that.
in the course of a couple of meetings, we'll approve a policy establishing the leadership council, so they can get started right away. And then it'll be an amendment, so that it has to be voted in or out by the annual meeting. Because if it's just a policy, then the board can change it at time they want. So it's not really a long-term guarantee.
Well, I hope anyone who's watching this meeting is noticing that community voice in support of additional members from Brattleboro is needed.
And if anyone is watching this at the moment, there is an election, there's a vote happening this coming Tuesday
Yes.
Yes.
at the high school.
Yes,
That's
7 p.m.
7
UHSGN,
and
June
it's
25th.
The
And there's
budget
not-
meeting, annual meeting for the new school district. Be there.
So, any further business to come before the Brattleboro Town School Board tonight? We have a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
6:15. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I say that we are adjourned.